Welcome to Greece. We are at the first Belgian Shepherd Club Championship of Greece, and also the qualifications for the World Championships of FMBB for agility, monitoring and EPO. We have with us EPO judge from
Belgium.
From Belgium.
Antwerp.
He judged today already the tracking, and tomorrow we will have the obedience and protection.
Defense.
So, how many years you are into sports?
Well, I started with EPO, but in that time there was no EPO in Belgium. So it was 1974 that I started with Schutz program. But in Belgium, in that time, you could only do Schutz program with a German Shepherd. So in that time I had Rottweilers, so we have to train in Germany and then they do the trials in Germany, because in Belgium it was not possible. We were not allowed to enter in the German Shepherds clubs.
Okay.
So that was in that time a problem. And then I did the Schutz program in Germany for 3 or 4 years. And then we started with EPO in Belgium. So we made one of the first clubs in Belgium. I think it was 1979. So and then I worked about 20 years with the Rottweiler.
You were breeding them also, or just competing?
In my whole career I was breeding 3 litters. So in 40 years, 1 litter Rottweilers, 2 liters Rottweilers, and 1 liter of German Shepherds. Because after the Rottweilers, in that time, the Rottweilers cost a lot of money, and I'm just a working guy, just a working class guy. So I had to earn my money with my 2 hands. And in that time, the Rottweiler was very, very expensive, and that is most of the reason that I started at one point with German Shepherds.
Okay.
And then I worked about 7 years with the German Shepherds, but that was not my breed.
Okay.
I felt we had no connection. I had no connection with the German Shepherd.
Show line or working line German Shepherd?
Working line.
Working line.
We only speak about working lines.
Okay.
And after 7 years I started with the Mallis. And until today I'm
still
occupied with Mallis, because I have a very good connection with the Mali. It's a whole other kind of dog than a German Shepherd.
Okay.
So,
and how come you are from Belgium and the sport that took you in is schutzhund or EPO and not a ring sport? I mean, why do you think you choose this type of
you know,
program?
my brother is 2 years older than me, and he lived in another side of the country. And in that side of the country they did a lot of ring sport, NVBK. And I was living in Antwerp, and I was going to a club where they did obedience in the beginning. So from the obedience I bought myself a Rottweiler, and the breeder of the Rottweiler, he did Schutz in that time. So I went
into this direction.
My brother was in the other club and he went another direction. So that's why he ended in the ring and I ended in EPO. It's
like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So how many years you are judging?
I'm judging since 1988.
A lot of years. Have you judged? What kind of competitions have you judged in the past?
Oh, I judged all competitions. I think I judged about 5-6 times the World Championships for Doberman, 5-6 times the World Championships for Belgian Shepherds, FMBB. I judged the Rottweiler World Championships.
So you have kind of experience.
I have a little experience, you can say that,
So with all this experience you have, what is your opinion about the new regulations about EPO?
The new regulation, let me tell me first that in September last year, we had a meeting in Slovenia. It's always after the day after the World Championships, we have a meeting from FCI Commission, and I'm the delegate for Belgium. And there was no big discussion because we didn't get any text. They showed us on the meeting a PowerPoint presentation, and maybe 3 months before I asked for the texts, but I didn't get any text. So we were in the meeting, they showed us a little PowerPoint presentation, and that was it. And then they say, now we vote about the program. So the first thing I said, sorry, but I'm in principle, I'm against it because I don't have text. And I never accept anything if I cannot read
what you are voting for, yes.
So that was my first objection. But we had a project, the first text that was 1 year old, the first text that they made, and it was in German. So you have to know German or you couldn't read it. There are a lot of people in the commission who don't speak German, who don't understand German. So they knew really nothing about the new program. So, but I had a list with maybe 30 objections. And they say, da, 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 but they accept nothing, that's it.
Okay.
So now I'm voting against it because I think there are a lot of things in where we in Belgium are not agreed with.
Okay.
And then we had a little discussion, and there were 3 countries who voted against it: Belgium, Sweden, and the third country I don't know which country it was. It's
so only 3 countries out of
23.
So now we are talking about the regulation about the removal of a stick hit in EPO?
No, not. Most of the people concentrated on the stick hit.
Okay.
But there are a lot of things who are changing.
Okay.
And the stick hit is one of them. But for the stick hit there is no problem because the General Committee decided that only on the World Championships, FCR, EPO, there is no stick hit anymore. And that is because there are countries where the stick hit is really a problem, where it is not allowed to beat a dog with a stick. And in that way, that problem is solved. So, but every country can do, if we decide in Belgium there are no stick hits anymore, then there are no stick hits.
Yes, yes.
But in Belgium, the stick hits, they stay, because when I started in shoots, in 1974, 1975, 1976, it was a stick in wood, that thick. That were stick hits. Now it's a soft stick.
Yes.
That are no stick hits. The thread that goes out from the helper is for me more important than the stick hit.
Yes.
So it's.
And you can see in other sports also, like French ring, that it's still, or in Kemperfoul, that the stick hits are allowed and dogs have no problems. And still now in any sports.
You may not forget, the handlers made a very big evolution in the last 35 years, but also the dogs. Also the breeders bred other dogs than 40 years ago. And in the old days, we had a lot of dogs who had problems with the stick. Now, on a World Championship, you don't see any dog who has a problem with the stick. Because, first of all, it's a soft stick. And second, the dogs are better and the trainers are better. So I don't see the problem with the stick.
I think it's a kind of problem of mixing ideas of people that they don't have any knowledge about how dogs are.
That is the mentality today. When I do something, there is always someone who is against it.
Yes.
And in our case, it's a stick hit, and there are a lot of people against it because they say, well, you beat the dog and you mistreat the dog and things like that. But that's not true because dogs have no problem with it.
Yes.
And we don't hit them like they cannot go anymore or something. It's tick and it's finished.
It's to be precise, it's completely the opposite. The stick hit and every kind of pressure from the decoy comes to develop a dog to being more healthy psychologically. I mean,
normally, yeah, you could say that.
Yes.
You could say that, and also, but there is one thing with the stick hit that where I not agree with the breeders. They say it's a breeding test. Defense is not a breeding test anymore. Defense is now a technical number. And do we learn dogs to bite? No, we don't, because all dogs can bite. Do we learn dogs to track? No, they all can track.
Yes.
We learn to do them in the way that we want it.
True.
That's something else. So, for me, it's 95% technique. And the rest is the quality of the dog. But like I said, those days, now we bred dogs who don't have any problem with the stick. So I really don't see the problem. It's the public opinion that said, hey, you cannot beat. For instance, in Switzerland, before 3 or 4 years, they made a law and they say it's forbidden to hit a dog with a stick. And what they do in the rules, they put in the rules, in German, wir berühren den Hund mit dem Stick. Wir berühren den Hund mit dem Stick.
Okay.
So, what is the difference? And that was allowed. So now they give stick hits without problems. So it's really stupid.
Yes.
That's a stupid discussion. Because also for me, the stick hit is not the most important thing in the defense.
So what are these regulations talking about, the new ones? So if it's not for you the main problem, the stick hit?
It's one of the objections that we have. One of the problems is that now, for me as a dog sporter, we don't have a logical way from going from 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3. And one of the goals of the new program is to make it easier for class 1 and class 2. Class 3 stays the same. There's no changes in EPO 3. But everyone who does dog sport knows that when you, for instance, the hurdle and the dumbbell, you train the dog, you learn him to jump the hurdle, and you learn him to bring that thing. And then when you are sure he does the two, then you put it together, up and back, up and back. That's the way we learned it for the last 50 years.
Yes.
And now they say, in class 1, there is no dumbbell anymore. The dog must sit this side of the hurdle, basic position. The handler goes to the other side, calls the dog in. The dog must sit and jump, sit in front of them, basic position, finish. That's the exercise, like it's written in the new program. For the scale vault, same thing.
Again, no dumbbell.
No dumbbell, sitting basic position, handler goes around, calls the dog in, sit in front, jump, sit in front of him, finish.
So the whole spirit of the exercise goes away. It becomes the jumping exercise.
It becomes obedience.
Yes.
It's obedience. It's nothing more than obedience. But then, in class 2, for the hurdle, you have to bring the apport on the ground, so one exercise. Then he has to do the hurdle. And in class 2, he has to do the hurdle with the dumbbell. So you throw him, bring, jump back, take it, basic position, finish. But then we have the scale wall. And the scale wall, the dog in class 2 have to sit in basic position. The handler go to the other side, call the dog in, just like EPO 1. So what is the logic in that?
No evolution in the class.
There is no logical steps in it. Then also, for instance, another exercise in class 2, there is no standing out of motion anymore. And normally in EPO 1 you do the sit and the down, in EPO 2 you do the sit, the down and stand in normal paces. And in EPO 3 it's in fast paces. So, but now they threw the stand in motion in class 2 away. So now you do all the exercise, class 1, class 2, and then you have to do stand in motion in fast paces.
Why? And why do you think they changed that? Or what is the reason they are
They
trying?
want to make it easier for class 1 and class 2.
But I cannot understand why, because I am not into EPO. But what I see from World Championships and competitions in general is that all top competitors, they have differences between each other with 1 point, for example, or even not even 1 point in the general points. So what I want to say is that as a sport, it has been already too detailed in high classes. So it's already too difficult to compete in high level. Why make it even easier so that more people?
They think that when they make it easier, then there is more people coming to EPO. Because now all of Europe, EPO is going down. Every year we have less competitors. In Belgium, in Holland, in France, in Germany, so they cannot deny it. Maybe they can say it's not true, but it is true. And Austria, same thing. And they hope that when they make it easier, that there are coming more people to EPO. And I don't believe in it. I really don't believe in it. So when EPO is going down, I think it's because of it costs too much work to get EPO 1, EPO 2. You have to go to track, you have to do obedience, and you have to do the defense.
Yes, so it takes a lot of time already.
A lot of time. And these days we live in times of crisis. So, but if you want to do EPO and you go to track and you go to do obedience and you go to do defense, it costs a lot of money.
Yes.
And if you on the other side take the monitoring, you go to the club, you do all of your training and you go home. You don't need tracking fields, you don't need a special developer, you don't need a lot of things. And that is for me the difference. That is also for
and this
me.
is why you think EPO is going down. The difficulty of.
Now, this year is the first year that it's stable in Belgium.
Okay.
But the last 7 years it was every year less competitors. And monitoring is going up. And there are a lot of people in Belgium who are going from EPO to the monitoring. Just because of that reason. Because now, and one of the examples is Mark Willems. He was one of the famous EPO guys in Belgium. He participated.
I know personally, Mark.
Yeah, well, Mark Willems, you know him.
Yes.
And before a few months I was on the Grand Prix of Belgium. It was organized in the club of Mark Willems. And I spoke with him because it was a lot of years that I didn't see him. And I said, Mark, why do you make the step from EPO to monitoring?
And he's really successful in monitoring. He won also the World Championship.
Listen. First of all, the guys who go from EPO to monitoring, they have another mentality. They train much more disciplined.
True.
And they take the discipline with them to the monitoring. And you see the difference between the guys who do the monitoring and who are coming out of Belgium ring and now do monitoring. And if you see them to Mark Willems, the way he works with the dog, there's a difference.
This is true. But
So,
on the other hand,
that it takes him, he takes it with him.
yes.
And in EPO, Mark was good, but he never reached the top. He was on the World Championships maybe 4 times or something like that, but he never was the top like Mario Slipper or so. And then he made a step to monitoring, and in the meantime he's 2 times world champion with the same experience. And Mark said to me, listen, first of all, I was in a divorce at one moment. I had a lot of problems. I had no time to train with my dog. So I decided to do monitoring because I go to the club and I do all my thing. I go 3 times in the week for training and I become world champion. That's the difference. And that is why a lot of guys go from EPO to monitoring.
So in your opinion, you think monitoring is kind of easier to train?
No.
Okay.
It's not easier. That's another thing.
Okay.
Because
I do this question in
if
purpose.
you want to be world champion in obedience, you have to train a lot and you must have a very good dog. If you want to be world champion in doggy dance, you train a lot and you have to have a very good dog. If you want to be world champion in EPO or monitoring, it's the same. A very good dog, a very good handler, and then, so it's not easier. It's different.
Exactly.
It's different.
This is what I wanted to say, that it's really often that we mix up different disciplines. If one is better or worse.
The problem is I'm judging obedience, I'm judging doggy dance, I'm judging EPO, I'm judging tracking dogs, I'm judging a lot of programs because they all interested me. And what me interest is see a good dog. And when I say when I'm with the guys from the EPO and I say I'm a judge doggy dance, then they laugh. But then I say to them, okay, take the dog and show me something.
Yes.
And then
silence happens.
It's in every discipline the same, and everyone in his own discipline say what we do is the most difficult. And that is count for the monitoring, that count for the Belgian ring, KNPV, EPO.
Everything the same, yes.
That's the truth. So we have to do something on the program in terms of make more things possible in less time and less work. It's too much work. That is my opinion. And I know a lot of guys in Belgium have the same opinion. But you cannot gain more people in EPO by making it easier. Another thing is, don't throw the dumbbells anymore. Then we are gonna do obedience again, because in obedience it happens that way.
Yes.
You stand there, you give your thing on the steward, you put it down, and then you
go bring it. Yes.
And the reason for that is then they said the dog has less stress. Stupid idea. What kind of stress is there in a bring exercise? I think most of the stress is in defense.
True.
So, what can that influence the dog on the level of stress?
And question, let's say, is that we often talk about stress about the dogs, and the thing is that, and I see this a lot in the positive training movement, let's say, or welfare extremists, that they combine stress with something really negative. The reality is that we also, as humans, and dogs the same, we will feel stress during our lifetime. Yeah, so it's really not working to avoid training or learning to the dog to handle stress. So if we do a training or we do a program or a discipline without, let's say, stress, it does not help to the dog to develop. We only create even more soft dogs.
Yes, but here the problem is that there are some individuals who use things like pink color, electricity, and they use it in a way that it is really animal abuse. And I'm 100% agree that it is animal abuse. And that are the people who are responsible for the fact that all the public opinion says that we put a sort of stress in the dog. That is not acceptable. That is one of our major problems.
Yes.
So, if you know Barbelon, if you work with electricity like Barbelon, then that's a whole other thing. That's an whole other story.
Yes.
But that is the responsibility from the Americans. In the old days, and I speak from the years 1970, 1980, and you bought an electric car in Germany, then you had one famous factory, Schechter. That was the best that you can get. It cost a lot of money. So there were a lot of people who saw that thing, but they couldn't afford it.
Okay.
in the first place. They couldn't pay it. So what did they do? They import a lot of rubbish from the United States, and that were from the machines that you put the button.
And it starts.
And it starts with electricity, and it didn't stop. The shifter in those days, when you push the button, they give an electric impulse from about 1,000th of a second. That's a whole other story.
Yes.
And you could, you had 10, 12 levels. You also could make a sound with thing just to take the attention of the dog. But the American cheapest thing from 5,000 Belgian francs, you could do only that. And then you saw the dog say,
yes,
really in the ground from Ellende. And that
is abuse.
That for me is really abuse.
The problem with equipment is that it's the same. It's a typical example, like just because you can kill someone with a knife does not mean a knife is a bad thing. It depends how you use it. So no one
if you say things like that, the other side
will say,
make an argument and say, now you are comparing apples with pears or something like that. And maybe it's true.
The thing is that for me it's about everyone.
You can do animal abuse with your fist. You can do animal abuse with your feet.
You know, I have a lot of clients that I do the pet training, just, you know, and I have seen real animal abuse with positive reinforcement.
Yeah, of course.
So most of my clients and their dogs that they have really big psychological issues, it comes from non-controllable and no boundaries situations with only giving. So only positive reinforcement. And there I can see really unhealthy animals. So I think abusing...
What is animal abuse? When I go here to the market and I see a lady with a tackle, and normally a tackle is like that, but that tackle is like that.
Fact.
For me, that is animal abuse.
Yes.
So,
yes,
animal abuse is a very large
conversation.
Yeah, very large conversation.
You were talking about EPO sport going down into numbers of competitors.
Numbers, it's going.
Yes.
The quality is going up.
Yes.
The numbers are going down.
I had this talk with because I had an interview with Bart Bellon last year, and he was telling me also FVBK is going down also from numbers, and we also talked about it, and it's also of course
ring sport is going down.
Ring sport.
And NVBK is going down. I doubt it. I'm not sure of that.
Okay.
But if it is going down, then it's because it's not an international program.
Mm-hmm.
And now, since a few years, since this year, it's recognized. They can give CSAT. They are now recognized officially by the FCI. And there are more and more people who are going from Belgium ring to Mondial ring. Just like there are people going from EPO to Mondial ring. So, but NVBK is a national program. They are working around the church, I say. They don't go abroad.
Why do you think MVBK association keeps it that way?
Oh, if you want to go worldwide, then you need a large network. And that network, that was already there for FCI, because FCI exists for more than 100 years. Belgium was also there by the start of the thing.
Yes.
So they have that network all over the world. And then it is much easier to make a program and a competition worldwide. NVBK starts from zero. So, and now they try to go international. They have now a few...
You're meaning the Belgian ring or?
The Belgian ring.
But the Belgian ring with the MVBK is a different association. What I'm saying that why the MVBK...
In Belgium, the National Kennel Club is Koninklijke Kinologische Unie Sint-Hubertus. Yeah? And they have Belgian ring. And then you have NVBK. And NVBK was in the old days also with us, with the Kush.
Yes.
And then they went their
Separated.
own way. They want their own federation.
What I want to talk about is that I'm talking with a lot of people in different kind of protection sports, and I have seen, maybe in exception with monitoring, only the last 3 years I think, sports, for example, like agility goes really high.
Right.
I think now it's the most popular dog sport in
Yes.
the world. But protection sports go down.
Yeah. Because always the same reason. First of all, if you do EPO, you need a dog who does the tracking, who does the obedience, who does the defense. You must do 3 different disciplines.
Yes.
And all of them who start in EPO, they want to be world champion in 2 or 3 years. So the dog must be good in all 3 disciplines. Very difficult.
You need different kinds of qualities in one dog.
That's the truth. That's the truth. We have 3 dogs in one.
Yes.
And the dog who is really on the top is very difficult to find. And that's one of our problems. If you go do agility, then you can do the program. Maybe you cannot reach the top,
yes.
but if you buy a dog for EPO or for monitoring and it doesn't bite, then you can't compete.
Yes. You cannot even go.
And in
the lowest.
agility, you have a possibility to do something with the dog.
And that's why it became so popular, I think. Because a lot of
Not
people
only that.
could join.
Not only that, we see that also in Belgium. What is going up? Obedience is going up. Doggy dance is going up. Agility is going up. Then we have a special obedience program that national, only in Belgium they do it. It's going up. All those things you can do with a family.
Dog.
You can go to the club. The wife can drink a coffee. You can take the kids with. You can.
Yes.
Then you train your dog. You're 1 hour with your dog, and you can go home. So it's much less work than when you do monitoring of EPO. And that is, for me, a big
Advantage of this kind of sports.
Of course.
Yes.
And it doesn't cost a lot of money also.
True.
And also in agility and in obedience, you have then those guys who want to reach the top. And they work at least as hard as we do. But that's a minority because
This is true. Yes.
if you want to fish, you have to fish in the water. And if there are a lot of fishes in the water, you can catch a lot of fish. If there are not too much fish in the water, then it's very difficult to find.
One good fish.
So how bigger the pool,
The most
agility,
they will go to the top.
how bigger the top.
Yes.
And in EPO and monitoring, the top is smaller.
But isn't that isn't that kind of oxymoron? Like, in one hand, you're saying that in agility, because a lot of people can join the sport, because of that, you can get also really a lot of top trainers. But in the other hand, EPO, they are trying, let's say, to do that, but this will bring the EPO even lower. I mean, it's kind of oxymoron.
No, it's a question of if you want to do obedience or you want to do agility, you can do it on a recreative basis.
Okay.
You can go to the club and make it a family event.
Yes.
It's possible. And if you have many people who does it that way, then the quality is coming out.
Okay.
And that are the guys, they are going after a few years to the World Championships and so on. But for the start in EPO, it's much more difficult. You cannot do EPO on a recreative basis. That's not possible.
I understand your...
Because defense is defense. The dog has to bite, the dog has to track, the dog has to...
Yes. You cannot accept a dog like to lick someone and then in the next level to bite
course,
him.
yeah, but-
So, yes.
I'm in a club, in an obedience club. There is about 200 people who do obedience. Yeah? And we are with 10, 12 people who do the EPO. And we train at the same hours as the obedience. We have a field there, and there is the road, and they have a field there. And there are a lot of people who are coming from obedience, watch the EPO, and they say, hey, we want to do that also, it looks spectacular. But then you look at the dog, and you see the qualities of the dogs, and then you know it's not possible to do EPO with a dog like that. It's also not possible for the handler to do EPO the way he works. That is one of the problems.
Yeah,
another big problem in the clubs is, surely in Belgium, you have a club, for instance, a club where guys like Jessen and there's really the guys who want to go to the top train. And then you come in, you make your entrance as Mr. Nobody. You have a dog, not even a nice dog, a Mali. And you say, hey, I want to do dog sport. First thing they ask, are you in a club? What did you do in the past with dogs? And so on and so on. So it's very difficult to get into the clubs if you know absolutely nothing. And in the old days, when I started, it was easy because nobody knows what was EPO, what was shoot.
So everyone was accepted.
Of course, it was much easier to get in the club.
Okay, I understand.
And
I think this thing happens in all countries, even if you don't have so strict regulations. I mean, in Greece also, more or less, agility clubs, they are more easy for people to accept new people compared to people in protection sports.
Don't forget that there are a lot of obedience clubs who are very commercial, and they want to have as much members as possible.
Yes.
Because what they do, that costs a lot of money, so they need a lot of people in the club, in the EPO club. You don't need a lot of money.
And also in EPO club, also I believe you cannot afford a lot of people training also. I mean...
That's another problem. That's the second problem. If you have in your... I did the helper work for about 34 years. 34 years. And I dare say the first 25 years I did it 6 out of 7 days. I was always occupied with defense. That is.
How's your back?
It's perfect.
Perfect.
I was very lucky. I did it for 34 years and I got one little injury here, so that's all.
I'm stopped.
And my back is, but my knees are totally, well, should I say, fucked up. Yeah, they are broke, that is. But the rest, and
you're saying you were doing a lot of dogs in 6 out of 7 days per week for a lot of years, and that the clubs, they cannot accept a lot of, they cannot. I'm guessing you wanted to say that you couldn't like decoy 100 dogs per day.
Yeah, that is the problem. I had a club who was not in the near of houses, so we could do helper work during the night also. It was no problem. We put the lights on and we did helper work from 7:30. There were days that we did helper work to 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
Right.
So 20, 25 dogs that we trained. And if then there are arriving people with a dog who cannot do,
it's not possible.
then you must choose. You must who you let
filter who will work with and who not. Yes.
That is one of our problems.
I understand.
And you then not forget, last week I was in Velen where Alfons Van Den Bosch is training. And in the morning he came to the house from Malaysia or something like that. In the morning, 6 o'clock. And it was raining all day, from the morning till the evening, and really raining. And I arrived there about 1830 or so, and Van den Berg was working with the dogs. And I went home maybe 3 hours later, and Van den Berg, 60 years old, worked 15 dogs alone.
Yeah.
So it's not possible to do 30 dogs.
Yes.
And
have a good quality also, I mean. And also if you work a lot of dogs, especially in protection, you need energy. I mean mental energy also.
of course.
So you cannot just say go to whatever in the obstacles end.
You can do it in 2 ways. You can do it like it should be done, and you can turn on your ear and put the economy meter on, and then.
True.
But that is
If
not
you want
working.
quality, if you want quality, you have to.
Yeah, that's not working with
Yes.
us. If you do it, it must be 100%.
What is your opinion about Malinois breeding in the modern times? A lot of issues happened with fake papers, with German club, with Belgian club, and lately FCI also has published some dogs that they are not able to compete or to breed again, and so
they must bring their pedigree back in and
yes.
things like that.
What's your opinion? I mean, why do you think the need of new blood is needed in breeders? And I have seen that mostly breeders that they breed Malinois for EPO, let's say, they choose dogs outside of FCI from ring lines.
Yeah.
Why this is happening in the...
Because in the old times there was no DNA testing. And everyone could breed with every dog. There was no problem. You can really do what you want to do. But you may not forget, the Mallies are a breed. The story is like this. One moment in Belgium there was guys who were hunting with dogs, the rich people. And there were other guys who had dogs who looked like a Mallee, but that were the first Mallies. For 100 years. And they came together and make one big federation. And that is the point that the Mallies started with pedigrees. And it went on and on and on. And the first 50, 60 years you can really do what you want. There was no control possible. And then you had the dogs like Bieber and the real famous dogs in the old days. You had papers of NVBK and KNPV and so on. And they used them for breeding. But that made that we have a very big genetic pool. And now in these days we have the DNA control. And with the DNA control we can tell that is a dog from that and the puppy is from, and so on and so on. And a lot of people, also here in Greece, they went to the same dog for breeding. The dog is world champion 100 times in a year.
Yes.
A female world champion as much puppies as possible with a world champion. And that made it our genetic pool is very small these days. So I think in the future we're gonna have problems because the genetic pool is getting too small.
So the bloods are getting really...
The bloodlines are
yes.
coming together, and in Belgium we recognize the problem and the government wants to do something on it. So we have now, and you can see on Google, the FOC commissie van de KMSH. If you bring that in Google, you see the website. And
so this is about what, joining new dogs into FCI or what?
This is about the problems with the genetic pool. And the government says, oh, you must go wider with it. It's not because a dog has a little fault that you cannot use him anymore. Because maybe that dog has qualities that you need in your breeding. Yes. So that is the discussion that we now have in Belgium.
But logically, the control came because we wanted to develop the breed. So
Yeah.
normally.
And what did we do? We do the
The
opposite.
opposite, yes.
We do the
But because I think control is good, but it depends who is
Yeah.
handling it. So I think it's not that we had the need to put our dogs into the database. It was what kind of database was that. So I think it's because mostly I mean federations or whatever,
Yeah.
we put a lot of effort only in specific things or parts of the dog.
Of course.
Not temperament, not health.
We looked at the things that we want to see on the field. And that was our base the last few
Criteria,
years
yes.
to breed. So, and that is not really 100% correct. Eh?
Yes.
If the Mali, for example, the Rottweiler, one teeth is finished. We cannot breed anymore. When there is one
Teeth missing, yeah.
one missing teeth, and it's finished with the dog. It's very dangerous to work that way. In the old days, when I bought my first Rottweiler, they had all of them black pigment in the mouth, all of them. And then after a few years, there was one with a light spot in the pigment, and it started with a spot, and they used always the same dogs. And now if you go to an exposition with Rottweilers, it's very rare that you see a Rottweiler with a black pigment. So there are a lot of...
Yes.
It's not the thing on the
Parameters,
field
yes.
only, there are a lot of other factors that you have to
Consider.
watch and
Yes.
consider. Yeah, that's true.
You are for the first time in Greece. You didn't have a lot of days to travel around, but how do you feel the competitors here? What's your feeling about it?
Well, I think
Still, you have seen only tracking, but still.
the last few years I saw the Greeks on the World Championships,
Yes.
and it's sure that they made a very big evolution the last 10 years. And when I come over here, there are not many dogs, but they are willing to work to make it better and bigger and nicer. And if you see, it's the first championship that they organized. They have EPO, they have monitoring, they have agility. I think
It's a really nice improvement, and
it must be a success. It is a success. If you can arrange, if you can organize things like that for the first time, then it's already a success, because you make a lot of publicity for
the sports.
the sport, and not only for EPO,
For
all
sports,
dog
yes.
sport. And I think, and for me, that is the most important thing. I was lucky. I started in 1974, and I could make a very nice career until the day I'll die, maybe. But when I'm going, then there must be dog sport in the way that I left it so many years. And that is for me a very important
I
thing.
think, yes.
Dog sports doesn't stop when I stop. No, it must.
Really important, this saying.
That is for me an important thing. That dog sport is my life, and I want that
To see it continue.
continues for the next 500 years or so. Yes. One thing that is very important, and that must be said. These days we have a lot of people who say EPO1, Mondio, is a breeder's test for the dogs. That where you can see the quality of the dog. I don't believe in things like that. There doesn't exist a breeder's test anymore. It's finished. Like I said, what we do is a technical number. The dogs made an evolution. For every dog, EPO is simple.
So you cannot test a dog by
easy.
these programs?
No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I didn't breed a lot of litters, only 3. But every time that I bred a litter, I spoke with the owner of the dog.
Oh, the father, yes.
And I always asked, can I do schutzdienst with the dog? And when they say no, it's not possible, then I didn't use the dog. So I must work with the dog myself in that times before I decided. And when you see the dog in obedience, then you see at least as much as when you see the defense. But I said the defense is a technical number, and obedience, there the dog must show that he has really enough dynamic and energy and so on and so on. So I don't believe in the fact that it's a breeding test. For example, take the aankeuring from the German Shepherds. Is that a breeder's test? Where they do like that?
Of course not. It's just for the paper to let the breeding continue.
What is it worth? What is it worth as a breeder's test? Nothing. For me, nothing.
And what about the breeding tests that breed clubs have? For example, Malinois Club or the German Shepherd Club, they have the care room.
I think maybe that is more interesting, but all those things that they do, you can train it. And from the moment that you can train it, you don't see the dog. You see what they did with the training. So
yes, I can understand.
I don't believe in it. I think when you go to training and you see the dog work in training, and I think you see at least as much as when you go to a trial. On the other side, there are a lot of guys who go to the exposition and they want the most beautiful dog. There are not so many breeders who really look
both
out.
ways.
Yeah, and I think that is more important, that you compare the bloodlines and that you really know what you are doing. It's more important than a breeder's test. So I don't believe in breeder's tests.
Thank you very much. It was a really great interview. Thank you for everything.
I think there are a lot of things who are interesting.
And I hope next days will be interesting, at least for you. And I hope we meet and we talk again in the future.
Yeah, no problem.
Have a nice trip back also.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Surfing